All right, Ephesians chapter 5, verses 25, and we're going to go all the way to 27. The thought continues forward into verse 28, but there's just so much content that we'll just have to pause there. So, Paul writes, Ephesians 5:25, husbands, love your wives just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself up for her. And see, this is the key. If you go back and you watch yesterday's video where I talk about wives, subject yourselves to your husbands, that only works if the husband loves the wife. What is the Greek word for love here? Agapao, which is unconditional love, from the agape, from the Greek word agape. Love without strings, love without limits. If the husband unconditionally loves his wife, the wife will have no problem being under obedience and subjecting herself to her. Why? Because she knows her husband loves her. Because she knows her husband will care for her. Because she knows her husband will sacrifice for her. Because she knows that her husband will give of himself and serve her as Christ served and loved and gave himself up for the church. So we look at what Paul says in Ephesians 5:22, wives, subject yourself to your husbands, in that whole paragraph, and we go, whoa, pump the brakes, Paul. But if the husband does what the husband is supposed to do, the wife would want to. She will want to subject herself to the husband because she knows that her husband always has her best interest in mind. He loves, he sacrifices, he cares, he gives, he serves, just as Christ did all of that for the church. And so husbands, love your wives unconditionally, just as Christ loved, agapao, the church, and gave himself up for her, so that he might sanctify her, which means to make holy or to purify, to consecrate, to set apart, so that he might set her apart, having cleansed her by the washing of the water of the word. Verse 27, that he might present to himself the church in all her glory. So the word present is this word, paristemi, which is to exhibit, to recommend. It's kind of like, you've heard the expression of a trophy wife. And so this is someone that, hopefully you know what the term trophy wife means. And so when you're super proud of your mates, your spouse's accomplishments, you want to brag about them. You want to show them off. You want to present them to your friends, to coworkers. Hey, look, this is my spouse. This is my husband. This is my wife. I'm so proud of them. And this is what he's saying. Like when we are washed with the water of the word, when we get in the word and we let the word of God cleanse us from the unrighteousness and the wickedness that we're doing, the pride and the arrogance and all the stuff that's in our heart, when we let the word wash over us like water, his desire is that we be cleansed, and so that he can present us in all of our glory. He can present the church in all of her glory. He can exhibit her, recommend her, and having no spot or wrinkle or any such thing. We're going to pause right there. The word spot, I'm trying not to give you motion sickness. The word spot is spilos in Greek, which means blemish or defect. That is Passover terminology. Paul is using Passover terminology because the Passover lamb had to be without spot or blemish specifically. Now, a lot of the sacrifices did have to be without blemish or defect, but specifically the Passover lamb was watched for 4 straight days to make sure the Passover lamb was examined in great length in order to show that this lamb was without defect or spot. This is what Paul is using, the terminology he's using. And we see in the life of Jesus that Jesus, from when he entered Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, we call it also the triumphal entry, he is on public display for 4 days so that all of the religious leaders can examine him. The Pharisees, the Sadducees, Herod, Pilate, they all examine him. The chief priest, they all examine him and they find him without fault. He is without any blemish or spot, wrinkle, a defect, disgrace. He is the perfect sacrifice. And he would become the perfect sacrifice for sins when he is crucified on Passover. So Paul is using Passover and sacrificial system terminology. So what does that mean? All right, take the next mental step here. What does it mean? If Paul is using that terminology, what does it mean he's doing with the Ephesian church? He's teaching them Torah. He's clearly teaching them about the biblical festivals and how Jesus fulfills these biblical festivals. Because you will find so many references from Paul back using terms that are Torah terms. From Genesis through Deuteronomy, he's talking about first fruits. Well, what does that mean to a Gentile? It means nothing, but it means everything to a Messianic Jew, and it means everything to a Jewish person. It means everything to a person who's learned about Torah and learned about the festival of first fruits. Why would you use that term if you haven't taught people what that term is referring to? And so here we see Paul is giving a Passover, or at least a sacrificial system from Leviticus terminology without spot or wrinkle, because he's taught them about the sacrificial system. And all of those things help us see Jesus in a new way. So I encourage you to keep watching, keep paying attention. You can text questions, text any of your comments, and I pray that you have a great week. That was Ephesians chapter 5, verses 25 through 27.